cute, girl. I love it.
Thanks. It's a bit cropped though, so that's why I have to wear like super high-waisted leggings.
It is cropped.
Just to hide the little pooch.
You don't have no pooch. You've got a...
It's there.
It's a whisper.
Everyone has a pooch. Everyone has a pooch. A whisper.
Yeah, it's true. Everyone does have a pooch. I mean, yeah, we be eating.
We do.
Even when you're like fit, there's always a pooch. You know, uterus and other things.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because so I had a bit of a revelation, and this will come up in the deep dive, I think. I had a bit of a revelation over the weekends that I shared with the other half about how I feel about my body. And he asked the question, when do you first remember feeling this way? And the answer will come in the deep dive.
Okay. Well, let's get it cracking then. Welcome to episode 31 of It's All Frolics, folks. Thank you for joining us for another week. It's a very croaky Monique B this week and a fabulously crop-topped, well-ventilated Amy G. Oh my gosh. Oh yes, wherever you are or whenever you are, thank you for coming back again or for the first time. Just a very quick plug to do all of the things. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment, let us know how you're loving it and liking it. And we'll get back to you. That's giving like a voicemail message now, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll get back to you.
No, I definitely can't sing along this week.
You can give in like voice break.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, see? Literally dust. My throat sounds like a kind of pledge. Oh my gosh, honestly.
Oh, bless you.
Let's have a quick-ish deep dive.
Yes.
This week's deep dive question. Oh God, this is going to be, I'm actually looking forward to this. This week's deep dive question is, what are the lessons you have learned from past relationships? Yeah, this is one I think I could be here quite a while with because I just know we do like a natter about, yesteryear and past experiences and could you believe that he did this and all of that stuff. But I think with all the work that we've been doing intentionally over the last 5 years, I feel like there's been so many revelations. I've kind of just like bullet pointed a few.
Okay.
So let me give you my first one. So one of the things that I learned is just because things aren't being done your way, it doesn't mean they're being done the wrong way. Now, as someone
I might counteract that.
The thing is, when I wrote that down, I was just like, I mean, it is being done the wrong way because it's not my way, but zooming out and trying to be mature about it, it's just like, okay. That was like a big lesson for me. I actually learned that whilst in my last relationship. I am definitely someone, I think you might be able to relate with certain things, who just likes things done a certain way. One, because to me, they seem to be more practical. I think that's usually the biggest point. It's just a more practical way of doing it. Yeah, exactly. And I remember getting into I wouldn't really call it an argument, but kind of like a debate about, and this is the thing, I can't even remember what it was over. It might have been something really frivolous, even just like the way that clothes were hung on the dryer.
That's a big one though, because if they're hung too close together, how can the egg
Come
get there?
on, talk to the people. Yes, exactly. Yes, I'm definitely like, you have to leave the space between so the air can circulate, as you've just said. The clothes has to be like stretched out. Don't be bunching things together. there is, yeah, you can't just fling the things on and hope it sticks. Like, no. So it could have been that. I feel like I would have won the argument there. So I don't know. I don't know what it was, but essentially, he wasn't doing it the way that I had like asked it to be done. And I remember he turned around and said, "But it's been done though, right?" And there's no argument there. Yes, it has been done. It's just like, do I want it? Does it have to be done the way that I want it to be done, or does it just need to be done? Like, what's the actual goal? And especially with like things that have to be done over and over again. So like, namely chores. It's like, does it matter that it's done in a particular way, or does it just need to be done? Because if it has to be done in a certain way, that essentially means I have to do it. Really?
No. It does not mean that at all.
Do you not think
because
so?
Because if you have given instructions,
yeah,
I think that's the main thing. Like, I'm not going to pick up on the fact that you've done it. If you've done it how I've instructed. If I've given you instructions and you've done it as I've instructed, or maybe there's a couple of things that aren't quite right, I'm not going to say anything because you've done it. Thank you very much. But if I've given you instructions and you've just completely ignored what I've asked you to do, that's where it comes out. It's like, I have asked you to do a certain something and you've ignored what I've asked you to do. You've just done what you thought was right, which isn't what I've asked you to do. Like, and I'm not, I am obviously sticking on the washing thing, but there is a right way to hang up your washing for the reasons that we've given. Like, if you just throw it on, then the clothes are going to be bunched. All of that water is going to be trapped in the item and it's going to smell when it dries. That's why I give you the instruction to stretch the bitch out, okay? It's not because I'm being pedantic. There is a reason for it.
Yeah.
However, putting things in the dishwasher, it doesn't matter how they go in really, because they all get clean. So that's something I have had to learn.
Yeah.
Because actually the fact is it's been done. So
that's it.
I have no leg to stand on there. But the washing thing, I'm going to be like, I will argue that shit to death.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was that, because there is only one way to do that. But even that whole thing about, like giving instructions, it's just like the instructions given make sense to me, but they may not make sense to the other person. And just as right as I feel I am, they probably feel just as right and convicted in the method of doing things as well, So I think it kind of comes down to that thing of, it's just like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? You know what I mean? Like, what really, really matters? I don't want to break up over you about how the dishwasher's been stacked or how clothes have been. I got to use another example because the clothes one is jarring, actually. Because then I'm going to have to rewash the whole load because you didn't listen.
Exactly.
But exactly. I think what I'm ultimately saying is, just as I feel that I'm right, they will feel that they're right as well. And it's just finding that middle ground. And really, I kind of felt to myself, on occasions, you kind of have to ask yourself, could I actually be wrong? Do you know what I mean? It's just like having that conviction that you're just like, this is the only way that something can be done, or this is what makes most sense. And it's usually because we are just in the habit of doing certain things a certain way. That's why it's right to us. But then you've got someone else that's here that's, seeing it through their eyes, through their lens, through their experience, whatever the thing may be. And actually their way may be a lot better, less stressful, easier. We don't know. So I think it's just that thing of thinking, could I actually be wrong here?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing in any kind of relationship, but more so in a romantic relationship, is the impact of the communication, because it's very much around how you're talking about those things, your tone of voice, and in terms of the words that you're using when you're having those conversations, because there's a way to say, okay, let's also explore that there's another way that this could have been done, as opposed to you're wrong, it's this. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, absolutely.
because that way that you're not closing someone down, you're saying your point is valid. There's also other valid points that we could explore. And then the other person will be like, okay, let's explore those valid points and see which one works best for the two of us, rather than you and me, the two of us. And
absolutely.
I think that has been one of my biggest learning points throughout all of the relationships. I think it's just built and built and built, is how I communicate and how I like to be communicated to. Because my first proper live-in relationship, we used to throw down.
The sigh.
Yeah.
Relatable content.
Like the arguments used, like, reflecting back, why we were shouting at each other, I have no idea. But it was probably just because each of us wanted to feel heard, and the way we felt like we could be heard is to get louder.
Yeah.
So that's an interest, and as soon as I came out of that relationship and went into the next relationship, that is the first thing that I massively changed about. If I disagreed with something, then I would get quiet about it and just process that information. But I feel like in that one, I probably went too far the other way and decided just not to say anything as much or as frequently. And so I ended up with a lot of pent up.
Yes. Also relatable kind of content.
Anger.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
finding that balance is really hard. I mean, going back quickly to what you were saying about finding your way to communicate, that was basically the other bullet point that I had, which is to intentionally form like a couple language, because I really feel like women speak one language. Well, whatever the dynamic of the relationship, one person usually speaks one language and the other person speaks another, because obviously, we come together as individuals that have had different upbringings, different childhoods. Well, we can only see things through that lens. And it's always very different. I mean, even like siblings that are brought up in the same household with the same parents will do things completely different, because as well as all of those things we've been taught and that we've experienced, we still have our individual, personalities and zodiac influences attached as well. Right? So it's just like, I feel, for relationships to be effective, you do have to intentionally work on that third language, which is how you speak to each other, whether it's like, I mean, one thing that I did in my last one is that we would have like code words sometimes. So it's like, if like an issue needed to be brought up where there couldn't be like any joking around, where like I really needed to be heard, then I don't remember what the word is, very long time ago, but a certain word would be said and it's like, okay, like no fucking about, let's have the conversation, So just little things to help you both meet each other in the middle, I think is just like really key. I mean, because like you said, with that early one that you had, essentially everyone just wants to be heard. No one wants to be shut down, because then you feel like, well, what's the point of me even saying anything then? And then that's where you get that resentment built up, because we all deserve to be heard. It's a natural born right. We're here to be seen, and we want to be understood and we want to be validated, because that's components of being loved, I feel. So yeah, you kind of have to work to build the stuff to enable that to happen. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. And it is a continuous kind of journey, I think, from relationship to relationship for the reasons that you pointed out. Like you're both coming from completely different places.
Yeah.
And so, you're like taking your map of the world and their map of the world and trying to place them on top of each other, but they're at different angles and they're looking from different perspectives. And so that's where the communication, I know it's cheesy as it sounds, communication is key.
I think we're going to keep coming back to that, to be honest, because
communication,
I feel like it's at the center of everything. All roads lead back.
Because it's even from your own, for yourself, kind of like the things that you're telling yourself, the things that you're like, did I actually see that? Or did I actually say that?
Yeah.
And how does that come across? So there's a lot of things to reflect on and learn. But I think the main thing in any relationship is ensuring what you both understood from the incident or experience where perhaps you did come up against some difficulty. If there's, I don't want to say arguments, because I don't feel like, I don't know. I guess from my view, an argument is where voices are a little bit raised, whereas I have a lot of discussions, a lot of debates.
Same.
It's, there's never ever kind of like talking over each other now. That's where we're at. There's never talking over one another. It's a kind of, this is where I'm coming from. Does that make sense to you? Can you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah.
And also along the journey for me, it's a case of, I'm not saying that I am necessarily right or wrong. I'm just like, this is just where I'm at with this right now and where I was when it happened. So there's space and that we can talk and discuss about it. But I think that's the main thing that I've been building on in each of my relationships. And when I'm talking about my relationships, I'm talking about like the more longer term ones, because the situationships also had impacts and lessons learned. But I'm more referring to the really deep, impactful ones, the longer term ones for me. Because I think that's where the real learning and the real growth came from. A big one for me is vulnerability. We've been talking about this a lot recently. I think in my first ever proper relationship, it's so weird. I was reflecting on this before we even started. We started recording the show about how obviously this is going out into the world, and there is a chance that these people may come across this content. But I have nothing but love for each and every long-term kind of boyfriend that I've had. And I can say that now after all of the emotions have kind of dissipated, and I can look back on those relationships and say, oh my God, that was hectic, or that was a little bit toxic. And I can take accountability for the fact that I was a large contributor towards some of that toxicity. But I've noticed throughout the time it's reduced. And I wonder if that's experience, because the first ever relationship, I was fresh, like this was my first proper thing. I didn't know what it meant to be in this kind of relationship. So emotions were riding high. There wasn't any actual etiquette in that relationship, which is why, we were like loggerheads most of the time. But as passionate as we were in arguments, we were passionate in other things like adventure and, all of the intimacy and stuff as well. Didn't help that he was a Sagittarius, which for Aries is like,
it's like, isn't that like our main, like, like the main one? It should have worked out. Or maybe that's where the biggest lessons came from.
Well, I think with that, although like they are we're very, very compatible, but we're
Yeah.
both very forceful and energetic. And
Yeah.
unless you know how to manage that in yourself, which
Yeah.
again
It's a
comes
lot.
with experience, comes with time, comes with self-awareness and so on, it can be absolutely disastrous.
Chaotic. Yeah. I can
Yeah.
see
And
that.
I think chaotic is such a sweet word, because that's what I would, if I had to paint that relationship, I would say it was chaotic in a number of different ways, not necessarily negative. It was just, there was a lot going
Yeah.
on. But I feel like I learned so much from that. And one of the biggest things I learned from that relationship was, and it was feedback actually given, was
By the
when we would
person.
have, yeah. So thank you. Thank you,
Ooh.
Em. Um, so he said to me that whenever we would have a disagreement and we would agree
Oh
on
yeah.
how we move forward, that he actively would make changes, like with intention, to improve the situation, and I would stay where I was. So there was an
Mm.
expectation on my part that he needed to do the work, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, hearing that, you're just like, me
Who, me?
imperfect?
So that
Ah,
whole "you could be wrong" question was just not a thing.
didn't even flicker in my mind. But I heard him,
Yeah.
and that then moving into every single other situationship, relationship, casual, whatever it is, that is something that I took on board. When something didn't quite go right, I was like, okay, let me take a step back. What is it that I'm bringing to this
Yeah.
issue or challenge? And what do I need to do to change that to something that I feel more comfortable with? Not completely change who I am, but just like, it might be my tone of voice, it might be my phrasing, it might be the timing with which I'm broaching this stuff. So that was a really, really useful lesson, not
Yeah.
just in relationships, in like romantic relationships, but in all relationships. So thank you very much for giving me that feedback and not being afraid to give me that feedback, because it has massively helped me grow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Mm. I've not put this on my list, but God, having heard you say that now, one thing that I don't even know if I can say this because I don't know if I've not had the opportunity to like exercise this lesson yet. So it's just like, have I really learned? But
Mm,
a trait that so I've had like two long-term relationships and they've taken up massive chunks of my life. So when it comes to like dating and relationships, I don't have that many because I'm kind of like a lifer. Like once I'm in, I'm in. But a trait that's followed me for like those two main ones is me not using my voice and kind of doing all the things that I felt like I was supposed to be doing, with looking back at it now, doing so with the hopes that this person would like recognize my value, I guess. And in turn, that hoping that would make them do what I felt like they needed to be doing, like doing the right thing and treating me the way that I felt like I should be treating me the way I thought I should be treated. But yeah, so not communicating and holding all of that stuff in definitely kind of made my heart very heavy for a very long time because I'm just
mm,
holding on all to this, to this resentment, this kind of anger. And now that I've been single for like, oh gosh, it might be like 8 years, 9 years, I don't know. I've lost count. I can look back and be like, oh well, yeah, girl, you didn't say anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you're the main character. Like all that narration that's happening in your head, the other person's not going to get it unless you say, that
Yeah.
whole thing about, oh well, they should know. Like, no, why should they know? If you're someone, well, okay, so I was someone that was just like going along, like to get along, just to make things easier. And that's like one of my favorite phrases now about keeping the peace. It's like when you say that phrase, keeping the peace, whose peace are you keeping? Because it was not mine at all. I was like warring inside, warring with them because I felt like they weren't seeing me and they weren't appreciating me. And then also warring with myself because sort of just being mad with my inability to actually communicate what the issues were, and it's such a funny one because you think, oh, well, how do I tell someone that like I'm upset? And it can actually be that simple. You can literally just say, I'm upset. But if communication is something that you find difficult, that's very simple, what should be a simple conversations are very, very hard to have, And I think I kind of got to a place towards the end where it just got like so exhausting holding everything in. There was kind of like no fucks towards the end. It was just like,
Yeah.
here's all of the stuff. And also just wanting things to be better. I've gone on a wild tangent, I've just realized, but follow me. Getting to the point where it's just like agonizing to keep everything in, like your skin's breaking out. You just, that upset kind of overspills to other areas as well, which is something that you don't want. And I feel like however what has to be said, I feel like however you need to say it, just like find a way, whether it's just you write a list and like, or write a letter, read your letter, or like leave it in the car. Hello? What the heck? Folks, my internet connection took a leave of absence while I was trying to record this episode. So we are having to film it in 2 parts. If you are listening, hopefully you won't be able to tell the difference too much, but if you're watching, you will definitely notice that no consideration has been taken for outfit or hairstyle continuity because anybody got time for that?
Authentic.
So yeah,
I can't
if you're
remember
watching,
what I did 10 minutes ago, let alone whenever we recorded the first part.
The only reason why my hair is similar is because I've not had, it's been that kind of week. With that said anyway, let's get into it.
Let's get back in, yeah. The first proper lesson, I'm going way back. The first proper lesson was how impactful someone's words or opinions of you can have on your view on yourself. I say this because when I was in my late teens, and I was a late bloomer when it came to like relationships and boys and stuff, because I was like, ew, for a very long time. Not because I didn't find them attractive, just because the idea of interacting on that level with a guy was actually quite terrifying for me. So I avoided it for a very long time. The first kind of boyfriendy kind of guy I'm referring to was I was probably 17, 18. He was someone I kind of grew up with, like one of those hot older boys that would hang around the area kind of guys. But he was a dirty dick. He dipped his wick wherever he could, not with me, but I thought, this guy is experienced.
Oh, the teenage rationale.
So, yeah, he was kind of like dangerous. Anyway, we kind of had like a thing, and then I didn't see him for a couple of years because we moved. And I bumped into him on the streets when I was like probably about 19 going into 20. And he made a comment about how I looked and how I was holding my weight. And I have never, ever recovered from it. I think up until that point, I didn't even have any thoughts on it. I didn't think I was like any particular weight or size. And these days, let me tell you, I was size 8.
That's
There was
wild.
nothing of me.
Yeah.
And that comment then sent me on a journey and continued journey in my view of myself and my body. So that's something that I definitely learned, was about just the impact of people's words, but also how I suppose how important they were to me at that time. And I have since started giving less fudges about that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
it's taken decades to get here. So that's one.
My God. Size 8, you know, it's crazy. And it is scary, as you said, that to not realize how impactful some words have been on you until you kind of do that work, have that sort of self-reflection, and you sort of trace things back to like, when did this kind of thinking or behavior start? And I think it's actually great to be able to sort of like pinpoint it to like this dirty dick asshole that's done this. And then, but because at least you can like focus on the healing of that, you know, but anything to do with self-image, oh my God, it just takes, especially as a woman, because, you know, we get the messaging everywhere.
Yeah.
And then for it
and
to
our
come from
bodies
someone.
go through so much change, like throughout our lives, and
continuously. It's literally like as soon as you kind of start to get a rhythm with it, oh, we're doing something else, or we stop doing that, or this hurts now. Like, it's horrible.
Relatable content. As I was smothering deep heat on my bloody knee this morning. Anyway, so yes, so in terms of like words and image, that's a lesson. Another one, and this wasn't too long afterwards, is having a laugh with someone, like how important it is to enjoy your time in a relationship. Regardless of how long that relationship is, but if you can look back on those moments and just be like, we had a time, you know, that was fun. Even if it's ups and downs, is to just reflect on that. So that's something I have, that kind of was a core lesson. And I have tried to ensure that that exists in all future relationships, because I think that's quite important to me, is to be able to be silly and to be able to play. So
absolutely.
Because I take myself so seriously most of the time, I need to have a bit of freedom.
So literally so tightly wound, I squeak sometimes. Like, it's ridiculous. So yeah. I totally get wanting just to have someone that brings that silly out, because it's definitely there, you know? I think it's a major key to kind of, for them to be like a friend, like a good friend, you know, that you just don't have to give a second thought to how you show up.
Just being you and not worrying about, oh, was that too much or anything like that? Like, no thoughts of that. So that's something. So obviously the awareness thing is a not so good, but a good thing now, because being aware of it, the laugh, having fun, essential. I definitely mentioned this first part in terms of my first proper live-in situation. Patience, understanding, and we were talked about a lot, communication. So those are the 3 lessons I took from that relationship. Now, I know I mentioned I was going to talk about like proper long-termy things, but this guy, I mean, he had an influence. And this is something he lacked, but something I realized from my interactions with him, I find important, reliability. So actually showing up when you say you're going to show up.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the next one was like a dip in, like a toe in an adult, more adult relationship. I think I was about 25, 26 at this point. And he was not what people would consider my type at all, but I was loving every second of it.
And that's
And
all that matters.
exactly. Now, this doesn't really go anywhere, but it definitely had a profound impact on me. Like, it was proper writing sad songs kind of situs.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And
crying at the window pane.
yeah. You know that Joey moment where he's looking into the
Yeah.
water thing?
Exactly that.
So for him, it's vulnerability. And that was more because he shared his vulnerabilities with me. And I found that so refreshing that I was like, actually, this is something like, why am I trying to hide myself when this is part of me? So that was a lesson. Now we're coming to the big dog.
Oh, God.
So in this relationship, I learned quite a lot about my vulnerability, and I think it stirred up a lot because there were elements of family triggering, and also ambition, or lack thereof. I felt that I relied on this person so much to make me happy, I lost sight of who I was. And I'm not going to say that's ultimately what drove the end of our relationship, but I definitely think it was a strong contributing factor. I think there was a lot of pressure on him to make me feel a certain way. I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but obviously the power of hindsight, I can clearly see that's what I was doing. I gave up and was like, oh, finally, someone who can do all of the things.
Yeah.
And I can just take a back seat. And I didn't realize how much I was giving of myself or giving up. So when that relationship ended, it was like, the best way I can describe it is, I remember thinking I had this like picture of what my future looked like, and then it's been roughly rubbed out. So you can see the traces of what was there, but it's basically just pencil indents on a paper that you don't actually see it anymore. And so I was having to start from scratch, and that taught me a massive amount. I think that's probably my biggest personal growth spurt. Was the trigger of that was the end of this relationship.
Yeah.
Because I had to relearn, what is it that I like? What is it that I feel is important? What am I actually looking for? Not just in terms of a relationship, but for myself. And it probably took.
Yeah. Yeah, because what you've just said about having to relearn is like that. Like, obviously, I've kind of had a bit of a front seat to this experience. And to get to that point where you're like, okay, let's begin again. There was a long time before we even got to that bit, you know? Like, again, going back to the impact of people's presence, like, that one was major.
Yeah.
So how long would you say?
I would say at least 7 years.
That's real.
Healing.
Yeah.
And even then, 6 6-7 years of healing. And even towards the end, I don't think I fully realized that I was done with it until I made the decision to start properly dating again, and then had a lot of fuckeries. But
yeah.
But yeah, it was because of that nonsense of restarting the dating that I could implement the learning. So I needed to have the shit.
That's
to
it.
be like, no, boundary in place. Nope, that's not for me. Oh, that's interesting, but it's not quite at the level that I require it to be.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think there's lots of learning there, but also, and this is a less kind of deeper, meaningful lesson that I took from this person, health. Because of what he did as a profession, I stopped having so much sugar in my diet. And also I started experimenting with foods that I would absolutely not give the time of day to beforehand.
Yeah.
And I think it sparked a kind of interest in looking at different things. And also, I think it also really confounded my love of nature. So yeah, so I think that was really where I decided I'm done with London. I want to move out of London because I feel my truest self when I'm amongst the grass, amongst the trees, amongst the hills, amongst the sea, as opposed to all of this cement.
Get rid of these roofs.
And I do look back on all of them, even the turds, fondly, because I can see the evolution of me throughout them all, which means that I am in a fantastic place to be in my current relationship because I know myself so much better. I can look back on those experiences and be like, oh, I have been here before and I remember I don't like this. So I'm able to communicate that in a better way. So thanks to all the boys I loved before.
Doing great now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, isn't it wild? I think this is why it's so important that we sort of really, take the time to kind of get to know ourselves first before coupling with somebody, because the impact that someone that has such close proximity to our lives has literally can change the whole course of our lives. You know, like we can't just be letting any old body in because we have to, I guess, self-protect to some degree, you know?
Yeah.
That is crazy. I mean, I feel like I'm at the beginning of that. Okay, so what's next now after this last relationship? I think I mentioned before the internet did what it did, that I've been single for sort of like 8-9 years now. And only sort of in the last year do I feel like, I mean, I've always like toyed with the idea of like wanting to get back out there. And I tried it for a little bit. I tried, but I didn't try. Like I signed up to a couple of apps and I was just like, this is trash. No, I'm quite happy, thanks. And, but yeah, like having had all of this time to do that work and to be by myself and to reflect and to learn. So, I'm laughing because my brain's doing that thing where it's just like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? Oh shit, no, it's absolutely gone completely. Okay. How am I going to piece this together?
Don't, because that's part of the experience. It's like, I think in terms of all of this, a lot of it is head stuff, but it's more about feelings. And I think sometimes there's no way to articulate the lessons. You just have to put them into action. And you're in a place now where you feel ready to do that. I think it's
I
nice
mean,
that, like, as much as you've dipped your toe in and been like, no, this isn't for me, and then again be like, this is trash. Just let's come back. Let's come back. That's just you realizing that you're not quite at that place yet.
yeah. Yeah. And then I'm not going to force it for anybody. You know, as much as I do get taps on the shoulder, like, hey, what about, trying this or trying that? But if I'm not feeling it, I'm just not going to force it. I do
Yeah.
actually have full confidence that whoever is going to cross my path, it will happen exactly when it's supposed to, you know? There's only so much we can control. And I just feel like, yeah, we can play the odds in our favor with certain things, by like putting ourselves out, getting a bit more social and stuff. But ultimately, yeah, just nothing happens before it does. Before it does. Does that make sense? Before it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Nothing happens before it does. Yeah. But it will be, I am intrigued to see, what I'm like next time around, really, in this next relationship. I feel like I just have learned a shit ton from the last one, especially because that's been my most impactful relationship. I mean, I've got 2 children from it. Like, it's literally changed my entire life. But I think the whole thing about, being vulnerable, I would agree with you that is like one of the most important things. I just think it's impossible to, be close and actually have a real solid connection without it. But I have learned that you really do need to feel safe enough to be able to do that, like it's huge. Like, in order to be able to do that, you have to receive that as well. You don't want someone that's going to be throwing things back in your face like a month later after you've had a discussion, or you just really want someone that's going to safeguard your feelings. Not try to fix you, just give you that shoulder and give you that ear when necessary. But as someone who, I've said it many times, someone who has and still does really struggle with communication and opening up, it's going to be tricky. But the difference is, I feel like I am very willing at this point now to do that. Whereas before it was just like, oh, how's that going to seem? Or, what are they going to think? And also, like, I'm a great avoidant as well. So sometimes I don't even give myself the space to actually think about how I feel and think about something, much less try and communicate it to someone else, which is why, getting to know you is key, because you can't show someone you if you don't know you,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it comes, I think that's the thing, is that, relationships are made up of individuals. So both have to come in. I don't know, did I share this with you guys? I can't remember, but I saw a post the other day, and it was this guy saying about how he was asked by his therapist to write a list of all of the things that he wants in a partner.
Absolutely, yeah.
And all of the things that, and then another list of the things that he feels like he needs to work on towards that, so he can be in that relationship. And then the therapist was just like, okay, the list of this partner that you're looking for, be that. And I think a lot of us fail to think about it in that way. We go out there and attract people who, I think we want to go out there and attract people who are able to fill the holes or fill the gaps that we have. And actually, we need to be coming solid
ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
We need to come showing up, having no issue with that at all, being like, I got me.
Yeah.
I want you to add to that.
That's it.
And it should be the other way,
Yeah.
So
There's no making me complete. It's just we come as two wholes. That sounds weird.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then we just like walk alongside each other on this life path, you know? It's not about, fixing me or like, it's just impossible to do, you know? It's impossible to do. But yeah, that post, it's funny because I literally said to Kay a couple of weeks ago when I saw her that I wrote a list about the characteristics that I'm looking for somebody. And then I felt, because you know me, I always go inward, always go inward. And I had the thought to myself, like, am I all of those things though? You know, because one huge gripe that I had with my previous relationship is that I felt like I was being asked for things that that person wasn't willing to give themselves, you know? So it's just like, okay, I want these things. Am I giving them? Can I give them? And what do they look like, you know? So, I think as a single person, I think that's like what I'm supposed to be doing now, just working on being the best version. There's no perfect, as we all know, but yeah, you can't ask for what you're not willing to give yourself. So yeah, I've repeated myself and I do that just to emphasize my point. One other thing I learned as well is that not to commit yourself to someone's potential, to kind of accept them like as they are in that space. Because, yep, they might have all of these great ideas and you might be able to see all of the things that they're capable of. But until the work is actually done to make them a reality, you can't pin your love or your respect on things that don't exist yet, you know? Accept the person as they are right now, because they might not ever change. And if they don't ever change, are you going to be happy with that? If the answer is yes, then cool, like you're all right. But if your future depends on what they do on the future, then you're kind of, I feel like you're, you know.
Setting both of you up for heart.
Absolutely. Because everyone's entitled to change.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I kind of know what I'm up to right now, but I might wake up tomorrow with a completely different idea.
Yeah.
You know, we are like the main, like I said, we said this a lot, we are like the main character in this, you know, and we have to kind of live our lives for ourselves for the most part, you know, and it is great to have a companion to travel with whilst we do that. But ultimately, the same kind of grace and flexibility that we would like for ourselves, we have to be willing to give.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also, I think everyone has their own hopes and dreams. And I think, again, something I watched, you need to, in a relationship, you need to be able to have those opportunities of checking in with each other, rather than going like working on your own stuff and finding yourself going off in different directions. You need to be like, oh, where are you at with this? Where are you at with this? Oh, cool. Maybe we can come together a little bit. So you're traveling in the same direction.
Yeah.
Like parallel to each other. And someone might be a little bit slower than you, but that's where you can be there to support and to champion. But everyone's going to do their own thing in their own time, and you have to give them the grace to do that in. And if that's not something you can do, it's also fine to say, do you know what? I love what you have ahead of you. I feel like I'm on a different trajectory. So this isn't going to work for the two of us because of these reasons. I don't feel like, I think I used to see that as being selfish, but actually being open and honest with someone you're in a romantic relationship with, it might hurt in the short term, but in the long term, you're both going to be in a much better place. I think far too many of us settle in our relationships and are miserable for it.
I feel like settling is... Yeah, but I do feel like it's a kind of like self-betrayal as well, because ultimately it's not what you want, you know, but you have to understand it is a choice that you're making to stay there, you know, unless it's like a safety thing, because, you know, there's loads of reasons why people will, you know, will stay put. But if with those reasons, like safety and with those reasons aside, you can move, you can leave, you can choose different. You know, as you said, it's hurtful and painful to begin with, but it's just temporary. To be fair, everything is. Do you know what I mean? Everything is temporary, the good stuff and the bad stuff. But this is not a dress rehearsal, girl. Like when we get to the end of this travelator, you know where we're going to end up. Literally. I like that.
What happens right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, well, I guess stay tuned, right? To see how these lessons develop and unfold.
I know.
As I
am gonna go on. No,
you
what
go.
were you gonna say? Oh, we do that a lot
every time.
I was gonna say that something that you said about giving space and grace and time to oneself to check in. I need to do more of that. Just being completely transparent. I need to do more of that because I can find myself getting incredibly resentful.
Yeah.
And yet I'm the one who's probably bringing most of the stuff on because I just cannot sit still. So stuff needs to happen now. We need to be making decisions now. And I'm like, oh girl, that's your timeline, not other people's.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about
it does. That thing about patience, I feel like I'm going to be learning and relearning that forever. I just feel like I don't know if I'm ever going to get it. I'm glad that I've got more awareness about it now.
Exactly.
Which is major, but it's something that I always, even just a couple of days ago, I was just like, this isn't happening, like, or nothing's happening, it's too quiet. But then I was like, hold on a minute. You didn't have any like major drama in your life. That's a huge blessing. Like, calm down. Like, things will unfold as they're supposed to, you know? But it's like those little, as you said, those little check-ins and kind of just like little self-affirmations and pats on the backs. Yeah, helpful.
I know, but that's typical of our star sign also, is being the leader of the pack. We're like, let's go.
Now.
Like, hang on a minute. Wait a second. We're just like...
As much as I'm like, oh, I want to lay down, like, yes, I still need things
I've got stuff to
be done. Yeah. Yeah. I just really want to learn to kind of like live in that middle ground, because this all or nothing, it's exhausting.
It will be useful to learn how to tap into it when you need it and to let it sit when you don't, because you don't need it all the time. That's how we race towards burnout.
Yeah.
And
literally,
which we do a lot. So it's a case of like just being like, oh, I've got this thing I really need to get done. And here's the energy. And then that's done. Okay, now we can sit down. Yeah, I mean, there's lessons to be learned all the time, not just in relationships, but I definitely feel, guys, if you haven't had the opportunity to sit down and give yourself some time to reflect on your previous relationships and be completely honest with yourselves about what you were giving, like, if you're doing this and not telling anyone else and you're lying to yourself, we have problems.
Absolutely.
Because that's not helping anyone.
Yeah. And again,
you do. But also, that takes practice too. So if you find yourself doing it, don't hate yourself, turn yourself off. Just be like, I notice. Thank you for bringing that up. And give yourself some grace. Yeah.
Just remember it next time. That's all we can do. Try better the next time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. All right, folks, this is a bite-sized episode. Bite-sized? This is a bite-sized episode this week. We're going to wrap it up because I don't know what these internet cables, Wi-Fi things are doing. They're not playing as they should. So thank you for sticking with it. 10 points to you. Thanks so much for checking us out again. Please do all of the things. You know what the things are. Hit the like button because you did. Hit the subscribe button because you came back. So, you're technically subscribed anyway. Just do the mechanics behind it. check out the socials. It's all Frolics everywhere you scroll. Let us know what you thought of this episode. I'm laughing because, oh man, it just feels like it's been sellotaped together at this point.
That's funny.
Yeah, let us know what you thought. If you want to share any revelations that you took away from your last relationship, that would be really interesting to know, but obviously only if you feel safe to do so. I'm literally going to wrap it there, Ames. Is there anything that you want to tell the people? Any parting words you have?
Come back next time. Which, if you subscribed, you wouldn't have to do any effort. It would pop up for you. So
just land in your lap. All right, guys, have a great week and we will see you next time. Bye.